Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Clutter for July the 12th. I just got some fabulous news. I heard from the coordinator at the Bwindi Community Hospital that the difficulties with customs in Uganda have been solved, and the ETA for the equipment and the celebration welcoming ceremony is 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. So, we did it. We did it. It took 40 people to make that happen. I just want you to know, this is not just my accomplishment. This is 40 people had to get behind this to whatever extent they could and make this happen. So I thank every single one of you. And later on today, I'm going out to talk to the people who are going to make the banner that's going to go over the door of the NICU. And it's going to have everyone who contributed's first name and the initial of your last name. So you will be remembered. All right, start with the material. So I thought it would be a good idea to kind of between, major topics that we cover on this podcast, to kind of do a roadmap to help people understand how they came to this situation of clutter/hoarding. And because how you come to it defines in many ways your path back out. And each person has, it's not that every person is 110% unique. No, there are population level commonalities between us, but what makes up your particular formula is different, has to be different, because your experiences and the way you interpreted those, the meaning you applied, which is why I've been drumming that in at every opportunity. The meaning we apply to it determines the message, heavily influences how it affects us, and then goes on to really limit the behavior choices that we give ourselves. All right, so it's sort of like this pyramid with a dropped bottom. So for people who are wondering whether they're just living with a cluttered environment or they're actually collectors, and not people who have a hoarded environment, let's have a look at what the facts support. First of all, there is no magic to the term hoarder. All right, and in fact, I don't use the term the person is a hoarder. Hoarding is not and never will be your identity. So don't make it your identity. All right, don't wallpaper yourself in this. Oh, I'm a hoarder. No, it's a behavior choice. All right, and that choice is made under the influence, usually, of an excessive pressure from one or a combination of three pathways. So I want to go over those. Now, I don't want this to just be information that you're hearing. I want you to use this information to filter what parts of these touchstones resonate with you. All right. So the first is genetics. All right. And we aren't even really truly aware or understand how the dice gets loaded, but it does get loaded according to our genetics. All right. And so those genetics, I'll talk a little more about in a minute. They have specific facts behind them. So the second pathway is a list of other accompanying health conditions, both mental conditions and physical conditions, that put anyone who inherited generally many of these are either have a high correlation cross-generationally, all right? If you didn't inherit it, then you may have inherited or developed a vulnerability to one of these, what we call comorbid factors, glomming on, and now it's another boulder in your backpack that you have to carry. But it's important to know that many of these comorbidities, these other risk factors, are actually embedded in our DNA, which makes them, now they are not the final determinant of who you are and what you're capable of. But the fact that there are markers and chromosomes in your DNA for some of these things, many in fact, makes them hereditary. You didn't choose them. Just like your blue eyes or your brown eyes, the shape of your nose, the shape of your ears, it's kind of come as a package deal. And you didn't cause them to happen. Now, how you relate to those things and accept the truth and then work to deal with it and manage it, that is something that you can and need to do. In most cases, it was an involuntary gift that each and every one of us have received. Nobody gets into this world and out of this world without some challenge, myself included. Hoarding isn't one of mine, but I have a host of others. All right, so do you, so does everyone. All right, we are just journeyers carrying different things in our backpack. So added to the fact that as we progress through life, if we don't acknowledge them, if we stay in denial or we don't accept them, all right, then we're going to keep bumping our heads on them. But only you, all right, have to look at the number of people who are now as advanced adults realizing and being diagnosed for many of these other comorbidities, things like ADD and ADHD. People in their 40s, 50s, 60s are now being for the first time diagnosed with ADD and ADHD. How does that happen? Who was asleep at the wheel that way back in childhood at school, when you were having difficulties with distraction, with kind of co-managing things, with if hyperactivity was part of it, with extra unfocused energy, how did they not get diagnosed then? All right. I think it's a crying shame that people have gone through life and they have internalized the embarrassment and shame, a sense of failure, of somehow being defective or not good enough, wondering why they get judged, why they get criticized, and worse, all right, for something that no one gave them half a chance as a child to know about, to understand, and to get help with, that could have been changed. Removed? No. But learning to live with, first of all, accept as not a deficit or a defect, but accepting this is something that is true about me, all right? And so I need to understand it. I need to embrace it. I need to learn how to get kind of the handles on this thing and learn to manage it so it's not managing me and other people's perceptions of me, all right? So many dynamics in their lives. Added to that, the individuals that we describe as chronically disorganized, these are individuals who already had to really fight to stay on top of things, to stay organized. It wasn't sort of the average activity or investment of focus and hard work for them. all right? Things would chronically get a little or a lot out of control, all right? They'd have to lock the doors, turn off the phones, all right? And weekends would repeatedly have to be spent rebooting themselves. And then when that stopped working, life events, one big situation or a series of smaller situations that were negative, that required focus and energy, all right? Destabilize them. Is there anybody here who in your life has not had one major event that for a time destabilized you? Anybody? This is life. And if you've been lucky enough that there hasn't been a major one, what about a series of smaller ones? Why do you think there is a saying that bad things happen in threes? You know why? Because by the third one, you're on your knees. It may be the first time you're actually acknowledging it. Up your game. When things aren't working, stop. Stop then. Put yourself on pause, have a really good look at it, and see if you can fit yourself a pair of handles to manage it. All right? Because if you don't, you lower your energy, you lower your focus. And that interval, nobody says that the interval between the next one won't be short enough that 1, 2, 3, and you're down. All right. Right. The trick is to restabilize. All right. When you don't restabilize, you just descend into an increasing state of other things that would not have derailed you. Now, exerting an increased pressure on you. How do you think you get to a state of being overwhelmed? That's how. All right. You really have to watch for overwhelmed and respect. There's no point in sticking your head in the sand, denying it, or blaming yourself or blaming someone else. When things aren't going well, stop. Stop and have an honest look at what's happening. That way it doesn't have to get a grip on you. That way you don't have to keep bumping your head on it. All right? Because overwhelmed is not a state you ever want to be in. Once you've been in it, learn from it. All right? Never a good state. And it's certainly never a good state to stay in. So the reason I want to give you this roadmap is my hope today is that we can demystify these things. They're not things that get a jump on us and then they become part of our life story. Do you remember when? All right. If you demystify it, you can cut it off right at the source. Because when something that is that intrusive in a person's life happens, and you don't give it the time and energy to understand it first, demystify it, understand it, and then accept it, high probability you're going to blame yourself, all right? And act as though they're personal deficits, okay? Not all overly accumulated environments, by the way, are hoarding, all right? But if they are, you want to have an honest look at it. Do the right things to overcome being overwhelmed. So let's look at the facts. I know I've said this before, but let's take a very quick whistle stop through this. Or maybe you can tell me, what are the 3 criteria for something to be a hoarding situation? There are 3 criteria, all right? Now, each of these things have to exist. They have to be present, even to a minimal degree. All 3, you have to touch all 3, all right, for something to be a hoarding situation. All right, now, first, there must be what most reasonable people, all right, would describe as an excessive accumulation. And the definition says a failure to discard. All right. I don't see the resolution of hoarding about discarding. I see the resolution of hoarding about resolving the relationships you have with your things and making sure that when you're making these decisions, all right, what you will house, what you no longer will house, you find the jewels first and make sure that you are preserving the things that you honestly value and that give you joy, fun, and play. All right. So let's abandon the term discard. If there's discarding involved, and there probably is, it will be those things that you can make an I can live with it decision about. You don't have to go into this fearing, oh, what am I going to have to get rid of? That is the worst way to do this. Don't do that to yourself. Start understanding in Conquer the Clutter. I describe a scaling system where it's divided into the things you love, the things you're wondering why they're still there, all right, and that batch in the middle. So I don't use the word discard. I say resolve, but it's resolved proportionately because you don't have something if you can't find it. If you can't access it, it's somewhere in a drawer, it's lost in a pile, and please don't keep things in bags lying around, all right? Because when you keep things in bags lying around, they're well and truly lost. You've got to go through 1 bag, 2 bags, 3 bags, 4 bags. Do you think your environment is any better off for that kind of churning? Please don't, okay? Don't keep things lying around in bags. So this excessive accumulation can involve things, but it can also involve animals or the combination. And also, even items that appear to be of questionable value, either intrinsically because of their usefulness and monetary value, all right, or because they aren't you today moving forward. That's another way that things can develop a questionable value. They were you, okay? In fact, they were on the hit parade when you brought them home, but now you've changed. Your taste has changed. Maybe you're realizing, what was I thinking? Have you ever bought something, got it home, and thought, what was I thinking? All right. I caught myself in one of those yesterday, and I don't hoard. I was in Mississauga on my rotation there, and I've always wanted a fountain in my garden. I've got a big garden in the front of my house, and I saw the perfect one. Now, I had laser point vision. All right, this is perfect, and it's on sale. Oh. So I put a deposit down on it. This thing comes in 5 parts, and you would need a moving truck to move any one of the 5. That kind of escaped me in my reverie about finally found it. Okay. And I must admit that I was on my way home hours later, and I thought, what in heaven's name were you thinking? Even if you can get that thing home, and you probably will through sheer determination, what 16 people are going to lift it? They'll put it in the truck for you, whoop-de-doo. But do you see how sometimes the pieces that are a safe path to where you want to go with respect to having something, sometimes you get carried away by just the sheer excitement of it. Yeah. When that note seems to change and it's starting to, the clouds are moving in and you're thinking, all right, give yourself some time. It can happen to anybody. And if you brought those things home and they don't fit, take them back. Take them back and do it right away. All right. Second thing, second criteria for something to be a hoarding situation. There must exist in your environment impaired activities of daily living. Now, pretty soon on the website, hoarding.ca, you're going to find a tool that has deciding how impaired your activities of daily living are and activities of daily living as they relate to a cluttered / hoarded environment. But there has to be, to some extent, even the beginning of impaired activities of daily living. So those are normally eating, breathing, sleeping, toileting, socializing, cleaning functions, those things that we do repeatedly, they become impaired. They're still possible, but they become impaired. Why? Because the space can't be used for its intended purpose. Now, I know people who have told me, the toilet works. I just go to the basement and I get a bucket of water, and then I go back upstairs and I flush the toilet with a bucket of water because the water or the toilet doesn't work upstairs, but I can still do it. Do you see how that is an impairment in that the thing can't be used for its intended purpose? Now, that can also be translated to getting out the front door in case of emergency, having a second exit. All right. And that exit not involving you walking on things or stepping over things or taking the chance in a hurry when it's an emergency that you can get out. Because I've got to tell you, our vision becomes like a pinpoint. We don't remember those things that are on the side of the stairs. All right. We don't remember that that plant stand is obscuring the path, and we'll end up dancing with the plant stand as we try to exit in case of an emergency. Food can be made. You just can't make it on the kitchen counter. You can cook, but you've only got one burner. All right. Okay. Individuals may still be living in the environment, but they're having to take all kinds of forms of unusual adaptation. Anybody here, and you don't have to put your hand up, but please be aware, is anybody here in that situation right now? And if you are, I want to hear from you. All right, I want to hear from you. Okay, now, let me just move ahead here. Third criteria. Distress or difficulty in functioning in the environment has started to occur, all right, due to the conditions of the environment. Now, distress or impairment, difficulty in functioning can be two different types. It can be an active distress. The person themselves isn't too happy about it. The people who live with them, friends, family are distressed actively, or maybe they're not. Maybe the fire department isn't distressed. Maybe your mortgage company isn't distressed. Your fire insurance company isn't distressed. Bylaw, property standards. Who else? Emergency response. They're not distressed. All right. Only because they don't know the true condition of the property. But if they did know the true condition of the property, they would have cause to be concerned. That box just got ticked. It doesn't have to be active or even acute distress. All right. Now, I think I've told you that I'm working with a young woman to close down her dad's estate. And I have to tell you, I don't want to give you a guilt trip if you do clutter or you do hoard, but on the 1st and 2nd of July, I spent 2 days with the closest members of the family in the home. And it was really, really sad to see how painful, how agonized the family was over how little they could do to help. Right? Mostly because it's not that they wouldn't have been there. The problem was generally, and maybe you can relate to this. I know I don't hoard, but I'd relate to this, that when people arrive and they want to help, everybody's got an opinion. All right. And the person who is feeling overwhelmed, your opinion is the last thing they want. They'll ask for it when they're ready. So that can become a way to disconnect. Please don't let it. Because your things don't care about you. My things don't care about me. All right, they don't miss me. I might miss them. I got an email from a cousin, and we've played Pass the Bassinet. There is a gorgeous wicker bassinet that I had rebuilt that was given to me when my grandchildren were born. And I had it rebuilt. It's just gorgeous. And we played Pass the Bassinet all around North America when there's a baby being born in the family. Seems we've run out of babies, and now the holder of the bassinet is wondering, what can she do about it? And you know, at the thought that that bassinet was going to go elsewhere outside the family for just a moment, all right, I thought, no, like more than 100 babies have slept in that bassinet. Do you know? And then I went to Intrinsic. Do you know how much it cost me to have that bassinet rebuilt? And then I got to aesthetic. Woo, I was like a slide downhill. We had, the whole 3, sentimental, intrinsic, and aesthetic inside of 2 minutes. It's beautiful. All right. But sometimes, all right, it's time, because nobody is volunteering to have another baby just to fill that bassinet. So distress, impairment in functioning can happen passively and actively. And you know what? Apparently you don't have to hoard to feel that. Who knew? These are not abnormal. This is my point of the story, is to tell you these feelings aren't abnormal. I had somebody this week say to me, I observed somebody doing something. I guess that, that's the normal way. No, there's nothing abnormal about the feelings you have toward your things. The trick is that it's out of balance with the space you have, which means that everything is going to become chaotic given enough time, and you won't be able to find and get to the things you want the most. All right? So let's move forward here. Okay. So I've talked to you about who, if they had a legitimate right to be concerned, mortgage company, landlord, fire insurance, bylaw, if it affects outside, property standards, if you're in a multi-unit dwelling, fire department for sure, elder services for the elderly, and the animal control, all right, the Humane Society. If the home is at risk for you, it's at risk for anybody or anything living with you as well. All right, so I'm going to move down here a bit and get to the next. Just hold on a second. When someone gets destabilized, all right, it may be because the behavior has become almost compulsive. It's the first place you go, all right? And when you feel that disconnect with yourself, like you are outside yourself, looking at your behavior, judging it, and being ashamed, being judgmental, all right, name calling, or the inverse of that is it becomes overwhelming and you shut down. Know that that is your definite stop date, all right, for allowing yourself to move any further into being overwhelmed. Because when you turn off the signals and you stop observing and you stop letting the truth into yourself, it will only continue to deteriorate until the health and safety of both you and anybody living in close proximity to you will be at. And that's why 22 years ago, I committed to following two principles when I work with people. All right. One, providing counseling and support and coaching for the underlying reasons that people hoard. So I have to admit, nobody knows what causes hoarding. We don't know, like, with a virus or a bacteria or whatever. We don't know what the reason is that people hoard. We understand the behaviors that lead to it and the risk factors. All right. So those underlying reasons are the things that you need care for. You need to incorporate into that plan. You need to factor yourself, the truth about yourself, not who you wish you were, not who you'd like to be, but the truth about yourself, the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And you need to not be satisfied with that, but you need to accept this is where I am right now. All right. And the other thing too is we all move up and down that scale. All right. We all move up and down the scale of health, mental and physical health. All right. So there's nothing to be ashamed of in that. Okay. But when you don't handle the risk factors, the genetics, the other comorbid factors that you might have, and there's a long list. I've never been the most organized person, and now a major event has knocked me on my knees, or I've had 1, 2, 3, 3 punches and you're out. That's standalone disorder, all right? I have come to, now I can't prove this, but I've got 22 years experience where I've witnessed it. If you didn't end up with excessive clutter / hoarding for genetic reasons, that right out of the gate from your very first memory, all right? And there's a long line of other people in your family who are similar, okay? I've come to think of hoarding as almost an opportunistic disorder. So it's kind of hovering in the wings, and you become vulnerable and it attaches. All right. Now, what I'm not sure of, look at yourself. And the reason that this is important is all of these factors are part of what you need to factor into a plan that's going to work for you. An ideal plan may not be your ideal plan, maybe somebody else's, but you start by acknowledging and accepting your strengths, your vulnerabilities, and your weaknesses, and you factor those in. All right. And when you do that, you lessen the power of hoarding being able to be your behavior of choice. All right. Because if you didn't inherit it, then it can set in, and I believe, I can't prove this, but I do believe after this many years, you know, that third category of just not the most organized? Well, you allow yourself to get into a compromised enough situation. All right. Just you've had a long road of struggle and challenge and whatever, and you're worn out. All right. You're probably not functioning your best, right? Would that be normal? Who would judge anybody for that? All right. Okay. So stop judging yourself. Observe it, accept it, and factor it in. Because I believe that third category of kind of chronically on the verge of being disorganized and then something happens, I believe that almost everybody on the face of this earth, all right, even those people who are perfectionists and everything is spotless, given enough pressure over a long enough period of time, whatever you are in the extreme will flip. And I believe that most people are potentially at risk of ending up creating a hoarding situation. And just because you've created a hoarding situation doesn't mean you get the label hoarder. The label hoarder is useless. It is not an identity, all right? It is a behavior choice that can become, with enough practice and enough blinders being put on, all right, it can become chronic. Why? How much have we talked about this? Because whatever you do the most, what do? You habituate it. Whatever you do the most, you habituate. Is that who you are? Is that all you are? Is that your identity? No, it isn't. Whatever you do the most, you habituate. And if that is ignore the buildup, you're going to end up in a hoarding situation. If that is go after one fountain after another, even though they weigh 2 tons and you have to be halfway home before you go, wake up, girlfriend. Oh, you're going to get that thing back to Ottawa in one piece. All right. So wherever you are on that road, stop now. If you're part of the way along toward positive, great. Stop. Stop now. Acknowledge where you are, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, and your weaknesses. All right. And keep an eye out for that trio. Keep an eye out. All right. Because I want you to be able to identify the roadmap that you're on uniquely. All right. And where the tripping hazards are, where the bumps are, so that you can keep moving forward. Okay. Once that cadence downhill starts, you have a momentum. Don't let the momentum build. All right. Okay. So get help in time. Quite often, coaching and challenging the individual, I have found to see and accept the truth that the things that surround them, all right, are out of perspective. They're out of proportion. They have too much importance, and they're being given too much importance, even if they're just sitting there passively, right? Because they're still occupying your living space. Hoarding is more than a mental health issue, all right? In May, and this is important for you to know in case you ever do need to know it, in May 2013, hoarding became a recognized, discrete, standalone disorder, all right, mental health disorder in its own right, all right? It is not, however, simply a mental health issue. Hoarding can also be illegal, I think I told you that I was an expert witness on a human rights tribunal trial for someone, so it can be illegal. It is always a personal and can also be a public health and safety issue. And when you've gotten to that point, when anybody has gotten to that point without identifying the problem and getting yourself or whoever to treatment, all right, living with hoarding disorder will likely continue, and it will likely continue to deteriorate along with the living conditions, all right? So here's another thing I want to be on record as saying, and I may not be terribly popular with the organizers. The answer to a hoarding situation, if it constitutes a hoarding situation, those three criteria. In the beginning, all right, organizing is not the answer. Getting an organizer, professional organizer to help is not the answer. Way down the road, yes. But in the beginning, when you're struggling with hoarding or excessive clutter that you don't want to call hoarding, you need a mental health practitioner. This is at that point a mental health ailment. It's a mental health condition. All right. And no one without mental health training and responsibility, all right, mental health practitioners are responsible to a governing body that dictates their standard of care and their standard of intervention. All right, that is really, really important. Having Joe Blow, who is well organized, come in and try to work with someone with a mental health disorder by just organizing, no. All right. Way down the road, when the mental health practitioner has helped you understand yourself, has helped you deal with and start to develop some skills and strategies that are unique to your needs, later on, then you can co-pilot the resolution of space with a professional organizer, but not up front. And by the way, I heard the other day from the daughter of the person who I was helping on the 1st of July that Marie Kondo apparently has had a child, and she now says that those strategies don't work. Yeah, Marie, we anybody who has ever had even puppies, I don't care if it's children, can tell you that rolling your underwear in color coordinated bundles is not the answer. Okay, so I'm going to have Braden edit that one out, by the way. All right, so where are we now? I do believe in doing, so I often get called and asked, by family members, would you do an intervention with a family member? And I don't do interventions. I don't believe in interventions. I think interventions are disrespectful. Putting somebody in a corner on the spot, nailing them to the wall with everybody crying and pleading is emotional blackmail. And I think they're far better for the people who want the intervention than the person who's going to be the target of it. I do think that interventions can be useful if you ask the person, are they willing to be part of even a psychoeducational discussion. So nobody's trying to convince them of anything, but are they willing to listen to some facts? about the condition that they are believed to have? And are they willing to do that in the privacy of a Zoom session, a one-on-one with the therapist? All right, not with the family there. Later on, if that proves to be helpful, and you have put some guidelines in place, behavioral guidelines in place between the individual who's in trouble with stuff and the family, and that is mediated by a professional, that can be helpful. It has often been helpful, but you never put somebody on the spot. I think that does more damage than it does good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how widespread hoarding is. Is this a common situation? I think it's a lot commoner than we know. Then we've got the money to do an adequate research study to prove. So how wide is it? How widespread is it? Truth is, we don't have the numbers to be anywhere near true levels. In 2003, all right, we had numbers bandied about that were 2 to 3%, and everybody went, oh, all right, 2 to 3% wasn't even the tip of the iceberg. Now we're talking 5 to 6%. That can't be, because just paradoxically, if I mention hoarding to somebody and I talk to them a little bit about it so that they understand it a bit, within 2 weeks, they're going to find someone in their life who is in that situation. That is not a 5 to 6% prevalence rate, people. All right. So I guess the message there is a lot of people can be susceptible to this. So stop judging yourself. Stop marginalizing yourself. All right. Stop undercutting your self-respect and self-esteem. Accept the truth of whatever it is, and we start from there. The trick is to get your way out of it. All right. It stops managing your life and you start managing it. One question I'd like you to start asking your things this week. All right. Just let's start with one question reliably. Are you me today moving forward? Or are you the me that used to be? Are you me today moving forward? Because like my granddaughter said, and I swear I'm going to wear that t-shirt one of these days, don't look back. You aren't going that way. Are you me today moving forward? Or are you me who I used to be? Or are you the me I'd like to be? Love yourself for who you are. Accept yourself for who you are right now. All right. The balance of who you are right now. And work toward the skills and strategies to get you to where you want to be. The things can't do that. No matter what clothing you wear, what jewelry you wear, what furniture you have, what fill in the blank, all things can be collected, hoarded. All right? They don't define you, just as the situation you're struggling with doesn't define you. You define you. We are more, each and every one of us. We are more than the problems we have or the labels that people apply. So, true prevalence rate, yet to be discovered. There's a failure to appreciate that hoarding is a spectrum disorder. Now, I'm going to close with a little discussion about the difference between hoarding and clutter. or collecting rather, sorry, hoarding and collecting. Many people want to describe themselves as a collector. But a collection is something that generally people are proud of. All right. They pull it out, or they go to where they have it stored and they enjoy it. It gives them pleasure. It gives them meaning. It's exciting. It's a positive. It's joy, right? A little jolt of joy. All right. It's also something that quite normally, when people come in socially, they display and they discuss and they will show people. They're proud to show it. How many people here who believe that they're living in a hoarded environment, have people in regularly, people who haven't seen the house before, new people, all right? Is there anybody here who has demonstrated the collections and bags and papers and as a collector? Even if you collect things that some other people do collect, are they in the numbers that you can manage them so that they actually represent something that you can share? Here's the acid test. Well, that is one acid test. The other acid test is when you look at these things and you go, I got to get this in order. Where is that? Whatever I'm looking for. How easy is it for you to say, you know what, I just really have to be ruthless here and narrow this down to what I can manage and enjoy it, and start divesting yourself, making those decisions? Not so much. That's the acid test. So if you think you're a collector, those are 3 criteria to apply. I'm not trying to corner you into, being someone who hoards or living in a hoarded environment. All I'm trying to do is to get you to have tools when you're sound and when you're vulnerable, that you can see the truth for what it is, because you can only deal with it if you acknowledge and accept, this is not where I want to be. And what do I have to do about it? I respectfully suggest the very first thing you have to do about it, all right, is look just for the things you love the most about whatever that collection, that combination is made up of. And everything else, no, there's one other category that you probably should hold on to, and that is the things that you legitimately, for activities of daily living, all right, need. All right. Those 2 things, they should be the first things you look for and protect and house so that they remain available. Everything else is up for grabs. All right. Okay. So let me see, where are we here now? All right. So different people hold on to things for different reasons. I took you through the bassinet, the wicker bassinet story this morning about the aesthetic. All right. Aesthetics touch you in a way that is unique to you. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But having enough of what you love the most, all right, is determined by how much space you have and how much of that space you want to dedicate to the number 1, 2, 3s. All right. Then having a look at the other end of the spectrum, So that aesthetic happens organically, automatically, all right, and is different for each person. The intrinsic, all right, that can get a little bit more complicated, keeping things for intrinsic reasons. So intrinsic can have a few different perspectives. One perspective on intrinsic is this darn thing cost me so much, I haven't had the use of it, and I haven't had the value of it. And you know what? I have to keep it because it's only when I've had enough use of it, or if I got rid of this because it didn't turn out to be the best purchase that I've ever made, well, somehow the money goes back in your account, all right, because you keep something that cost more than you've had the value of. We all make mistakes. We all are influenced by the mood of the moment. Just talk to me about fountains. And it can happen. The money's not going back in the bank. Sell it if you have to, but don't hold on to it because you haven't had the value of it. If it was as useful as you thought it was going to be, you would have by now. Holding on to it isn't going to change that. Accept reality. Now, another intrinsic is useful. I know what I could do with that. All right. Now, that can also be, I mean, there are many sketchy ways of experiencing that. Have you ever driven down a street and somebody's put something out at the end of the road and you think, oh, that's too good to get thrown out. I should take it. What I could do with that. Okay. My suggestion, if you did not have, now that's not always a bad idea. 99% of the time, it's a bad idea. But if you didn't have that item registered in the back of your brain, I am looking for, fill in the blank, and there it is. By golly, I'll take it because I have an active plan to do something. And that is exactly what I've been looking for. 2 thoughts on that. It probably is too good to be thrown out. All right. And it probably is an opportunity, but every opportunity isn't your opportunity. It might be somebody else's opportunity. Let it be. The other thing I ask people to consider is if you happen to be, artistically talented, or you're handy, and you like tinkering and you like that kind of thing, projects. I ask people to have one project on the go and the product to do it, and one project in the wings, and to be gathering only the product for it. Most environments can handle that. All right. But every good idea is not a good idea. Rank them by, and when will I get to that? What part of my sleeping, breathing, living, shopping, staying ahead of the clutter that builds up naturally, am I going to be devoting to that? All right. What part of your day-to-day life are you going to miss? What part of your social life? What part of the peace of mind that you're in search of are you going to miss if you try to grab excessive numbers of projects and the product to go with it? What impact is that going to have on your space and your day-to-day life? Because as you look around in spaces where that's happened, you don't have peace of mind. Gauge, listen to what your body and your mind is trying to tell you. We don't want any more paper, Mom. We don't want any more bags, Mom. We don't want any more cloth or tools or parts or whatever, Mom. All right. That little part inside yourself is trying to tell you the truth. Listen to it. You know the truth. You know it in your heart of hearts. Quiet the chatter that's trying to convince you and just listen to that one peaceful message that you already know the truth about. And on that note, I am going to leave you today. And I don't know whether everybody was here. You're going to be sick of this story. But tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock Ugandan time, which is unfortunately 2 a.m. my time, the CPAP equipment is arriving at the hospital, and the women are going to be there to dance and sing and greet it and dance it in. And everybody is so excited. And I got an email from Eliad at Bawindi Hospital, and he wants me personally to thank every single one of you. And anybody who contributed, no matter how much or how little or whatever, your first name and your last initial are going to be on a banner that's being made, and it's going to be shipped to Uganda, and they're going to put it over the door of the NICU. It took 40 people to make that come true. So I am just one of 40. All right. Thank you all so much. And I want you to know that there are babies that are going to live because of the work we did. There has to be the next Nelson Mandela or Desmond Tutu or Maya Angelou, right? And they might as well come from Uganda. Maybe it'll be one of those babies. And we will be saving a lot of parents who already have a hard life, all right? A lot of grief losing those babies. So we did good work, people. We did good work. You should be proud of yourself. Take care. See you next week. Bye.